You know that quiet moment that happens sometimes when you look at your bank balance. Not the dramatic kind where the numbers are frighteningly low, not the kind that forces immediate panic. I mean the other kind of moment. The one where things are technically fine, the bills are covered, the income is steady. Maybe there's even a small cushion there, and yet, something in you still tightens. You hesitate before buying something small. You calculate a purchase in your head 3 times before pressing confirm. You feel a strange tension spending money on something that isn't strictly necessary, even when you know it won't actually hurt you financially. From the outside, this behavior often gets labeled in simple ways. Some people call it being cheap. Others call it anxiety. Sometimes people assume it's a lack of financial discipline in the opposite direction, that you're simply overthinking things that should be straightforward. But that interpretation misses something important, because for a certain kind of person, money isn't just numbers. It's not just math. It's not even really about the purchase itself. It's about what the nervous system learned to associate with money long before adulthood ever started. And once you see that clearly, something about your relationship with money begins to make a different kind of sense. The conversation around money tends to stay on the surface. Budgets, investing strategies, debt reduction plans, all of those things matter, of course. They're practical tools, but there's a deeper layer that almost never gets talked about correctly. The psychology of money. Not how much you have, not what you know about finance, but the internal system that determines how your mind reacts to money in the first place. There's more going on there than most people realize. Behavioral economists and psychologists have been studying this for decades, and one of the most consistent findings is surprisingly simple. Human beings do not make financial decisions purely based on logic. We make them based on emotional patterns that were formed long before we ever opened our first bank account. In other words, the way you feel about money is often older than the money itself. Researchers studying decision-making have found that financial behavior is heavily influenced by what's sometimes called money scripts. These are unconscious beliefs about money that develop early in life, usually through observation rather than instruction. A child watches how adults around them react to money. They notice whether bills create tension in the household. They notice whether money is talked about openly or avoided completely. They notice whether spending is associated with guilt, relief, pride, or fear. The brain records these patterns quietly. No one sits the child down and explains it as a lesson, but the nervous system learns anyway. And once those patterns are learned, they tend to stay remarkably stable. Neuroscience offers a useful lens here. When we experience repeated emotional situations during development, the brain begins to automate its responses to similar situations later in life. The amygdala, the part of the brain involved in detecting potential threats, becomes particularly sensitive to cues that resemble past stress. Money for many people becomes one of those cues, not because money itself is dangerous, but because money was once connected to uncertainty, conflict, or instability. So the nervous system develops a habit. It scans, it calculates, it hesitates, even when the circumstances have changed. This is why 2 people with identical salaries can experience money in completely different ways. One person spends freely without much thought and feels relaxed about it. Another person with the same income feels a low-level tension around every purchase. It's easy to assume that one of them is simply better at money than the other, but the difference often has very little to do with financial intelligence. It has more to do with the emotional blueprint their brain developed early on. Some people grew up in environments where money flowed consistently and predictably. Bills were paid without visible stress. Purchases were discussed casually. The emotional atmosphere around money was relatively calm. When a child grows up in that environment, their nervous system learns something simple. Resources are stable. Other people grow up in environments where money feels unpredictable. A broken appliance becomes a crisis. Conversations about finances carry tension. A parent's mood shifts depending on the state of the bank account. In that environment, the nervous system learns a different lesson. Resources can disappear. Neither experience is unusual. They're simply different starting points, and the brain doesn't discard those early lessons easily. What's interesting is that this pattern often continues even after someone's financial reality improves dramatically. Someone who once lived with constant scarcity might later build a stable career, earn a comfortable income, and maintain healthy savings. On paper, the threat is gone, but the nervous system doesn't update instantly. The circuitry that formed during years of unpredictability continues running quietly in the background. It doesn't care about spreadsheets. It doesn't read bank statements. It simply remembers what it learned when the stakes were real. So when you hesitate before spending money you can technically afford, that reaction isn't necessarily irrational. It may simply be the echo of an older survival pattern. And that pattern once had a purpose. When resources were limited, caution around spending was protective. It increased the chances that something essential could still be covered later. The brain adapted to the environment it lived in. That's what human nervous systems do. They adapt. The interesting part is that these adaptations don't always disappear once the environment changes. Sometimes they stay with us long after the original conditions are gone, which leads to a strange paradox that many people quietly experience. Financial stability does not automatically produce a feeling of safety. You can build the stability your younger self once needed and still feel the reflex to guard it constantly. And that can be confusing, especially when other people around you seem to move through financial decisions more casually. But this difference doesn't mean one approach is correct and the other is flawed. Some people are naturally comfortable with risk. Their nervous systems tolerate uncertainty easily. Others are more sensitive to instability and prefer stronger margins of safety. Neither pattern is inherently better. They're simply different ways the mind tries to maintain security. The problem arises when people assume their reactions are purely personal quirks rather than the result of deeply learned patterns. Because when something feels like a personal flaw, it's easy to start judging yourself for it. You might wonder why you can't relax around money the way others do. Why spending sometimes feels heavier than it logically should. Why the feeling of enough seems harder to reach than expected. But when you understand the psychology behind it, the picture becomes clearer. Your reactions didn't appear randomly. They were built slowly, through repeated experiences that shaped how your nervous system interprets financial decisions. And once you see that, something subtle shifts. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" a different question begins to emerge. What did my mind learn about money, and why did it learn it that way? Because once you begin asking that question, the story behind your financial behavior often becomes much clearer. Think about the environments where people first learn what money means. It rarely happens through formal lessons. Most families don't sit down and explain the emotional rules of money. Instead, children absorb it indirectly. They watch the tension in a parent's voice when a bill arrives. They notice when spending is celebrated, when it's criticized, and when it's avoided entirely. Over time, these observations form a kind of internal map, not a conscious one. Most people can't recall the exact moment these beliefs formed, but the brain remembers patterns even when the conscious mind doesn't. It stores emotional associations and uses them later as shortcuts for decision-making. This is why two people can look at the same financial situation and interpret it completely differently. One person might see an opportunity, another person might see risk. Both interpretations can feel equally convincing because both are rooted in real experiences that shape the brain's expectations about the world. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as predictive processing. The brain is constantly trying to anticipate what might happen next based on what has happened before. It doesn't wait for events to unfold. It prepares in advance, using past experiences as its guide. When money was once associated with instability, the brain may continue to anticipate instability even after circumstances improve. It's not a conscious decision. It's simply how the nervous system protects itself from surprises. That protective instinct often shows up in subtle ways. Someone might save aggressively, even when their finances are already stable. They might hesitate to enjoy things they worked hard to earn. They might feel uneasy during periods of financial calm, almost as if the calm itself is suspicious. From the outside, this can look like excessive caution, but internally, it often feels like responsibility, a quiet commitment to never return to the uncertainty that once existed. What's interesting is that the same pattern can create both strength and strain at the same time. On one hand, people with this mindset often develop remarkable financial discipline. They tend to plan carefully. They notice details others overlook. They build safety margins that protect them during difficult periods. In many cases, These habits are exactly what allowed them to create stability in the first place. But on the other hand, the same vigilance that protects stability can make it difficult to fully experience it, because the nervous system remains in preparation mode, even when the threat it prepared for is no longer present. This is one of the quieter trade-offs of psychological adaptation. The traits that once helped someone survive an uncertain environment can sometimes linger long after survival is no longer the central challenge. The mind continues to scan for problems that may never arrive, and this scanning can create a strange emotional gap. You might logically know that you are doing well. The numbers support that conclusion. Your life may look stable from the outside, yet internally, a part of your mind still behaves as if stability must constantly be defended. That internal tension isn't a character flaw. It's simply the nervous system doing what it was trained to do. But recognizing this pattern often creates a small but important shift, because when you understand that your reactions were learned, they stop feeling like permanent truths. They become patterns, and patterns, once recognized, can be approached with curiosity instead of judgment. You might start noticing when a financial decision triggers tension that doesn't quite match the current reality. You might observe how quickly your mind jumps to worst-case scenarios around money. You might recognize that some of your instincts were designed for a different stage of life. None of this means those instincts were wrong. They may have been exactly right for the environment where they formed. But the brain is capable of updating its expectations over time, not by forcing yourself to think differently overnight, but by slowly allowing new experiences to register. Moments where spending doesn't lead to crisis. Moments where stability continues even after you relax slightly. Moments where the system begins to realize that the conditions have changed. This process doesn't happen instantly because the nervous system learns through repetition, but it does happen. And as it does, something subtle begins to shift inside the way you experience money. The tension softens, not because you abandon caution or responsibility, but because the part of your mind that once guarded against constant instability begins to recognize that the ground beneath you is more stable than it once was. The goal was never to erase the mindset that helped you build stability. That mindset likely contains strengths that many people never develop: persistence, awareness, resilience, and the ability to plan carefully when resources matter. Those traits are not problems. They're evidence of how adaptable the human mind can be. What changes is simply the relationship you have with those instincts. Instead of letting them run silently in the background, you begin to understand where they came from. And understanding has a way of loosening patterns that once felt immovable. You stop interpreting every hesitation as a sign that something is wrong with you. You begin to see it as the echo of a system that was once protecting you. And when you see it that way, something else becomes possible. You can keep the strengths that helped you build the life you have, while slowly allowing yourself to experience the stability you worked so hard to create. Not perfectly, not all at once, but gradually, as your nervous system learns that the story it memorized years ago is no longer the only one available. If some part of this feels familiar, if you recognize pieces of your own relationship with money in these patterns, there's often more beneath the surface worth exploring. The way we think about money is rarely just about finances. It's connected to identity, safety, belonging, and the environments that shaped us long before we understood what any of those things meant. And once you start noticing those connections, you begin to see that many of the reactions you once considered flaws are actually parts of a much deeper story about how your mind learned to navigate the world.